Welcome back. This month we're going in focus on spotlighting some of the legislative leaders at the General Assembly, those who help to shape the decisions and direction of the state. This week we're talking with Representative Jason Saine. He's a Republican from Lincoln County who also serves as one of the head budget writers. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
So you're a lifelong North Carolinian. I feel like we say that less and less often about folks here with how fast we're growing.
True.
What was it like growing up in Lincolnton?
Loved it. I actually moved back. My wife and I moved into the same neighborhood I grew up in. So we're 4 doors down from my parents and love it. Have lived in Denver, which is just on the other side of Lincoln County, and even lived up in Vail, which is the western part of Lincoln County. So I've kind of lived in, if you think of Tennessee, Lincoln County looks a lot like Tennessee. So I've lived on all the corners and in the middle. So Lincoln's in the middle. But love growing up there. I mean, it's a great place. It's a great place to raise a family. Great schools. Low crime. It's essentially what you'd want, right? We're not terribly wealthy, but it's a great place to live. And mom and dad worked, and I've got a younger sister, and we didn't want for much, just because we had everything we needed. And I like that for my son. We always kind of joke at our house, we like living in a happy place, and when you have an 11-year-old, happy place is a nice place to be. But we do, half the time we don't, I shouldn't say we don't lock our doors, but sometimes we don't worry about it because we do live in a safe area. The weather's great. North Carolina is what North Carolina is. And so growing up here, my wife grew up she's from Virginia originally, but also grew up in New York State and Connecticut, and loves where she lives now because she's one of those folks that have come from somewhere else. But there's a lot to love about our state. And so getting to go to the legislature and work on improving what I think is already a great product and making it better, whether it be incrementally or by large steps, it's kind of fun to do. And then to go back home and see the results of it.
You had a little bit of politics in your blood. Your mom served on the county commission?
My mother's a county commissioner. I went to UNC Charlotte, got a degree in political science, but I was working on my first campaign when Richard Vinroot was mayor of Charlotte and running for governor. And I was out on the eastern part of the state and campaigning with him. And she called me. She said, "I did something today that may shock you." And I said, "What's that, Mom?" She says, "I filed for county commission." I said, I didn't know that you wanted to run, but very cool. And she became our first ever female elected county commissioner in Lincoln County. So I'm very proud of her. She had not been in politics at all. She was a little upset about some things that were happening with our school system at the time, just some buildings and so forth. And she said, "I think I can impact that." And so she served 2 terms and then decided she didn't want to do that anymore, but she had fun doing it. And folks still remembered that she was a county commissioner, and I used the same color schemes on my signs. And I don't mind being best son. It helps me in politics.
What was it that brought you to the Republican Party in Lincoln County? Yeah,
so I was involved in college. I went to NC State and UNC Charlotte, so I was involved in college Republicans. In 1992, President Bush was coming through on the campaign trail, and he's over at the fairgrounds here in Raleigh. So got to meet our vice president and our president, and that was really awesome. And started volunteering for campaigns. My first big campaign that I volunteered for was Congresswoman Sue Myrick, and she had been mayor of Charlotte and was running for Congress in 1994. She was incredibly gracious to young kids that got involved in her campaign, and we got to meet the upcoming speaker, Newt Gingrich, before he was speaker. We're kind of starstruck with that, and she allowed us a lot of access to the political machinations of how to get elected. And so I just kind of got that in my blood and enjoyed it. Came back home and got involved in our local party and became a precinct worker, and just did that while I did other work as well. And worked my way through the party and was the state Young Republican chairman. Clark, who works for me in my office, is the current state Young Republican chairman. So it's kind of fun to see that as well. And a lot of the folks and a lot of the young people who've worked for me are involved in that organization. So just in my blood, enjoyed it. Ronald Reagan was running for president in 1980. My parents at the time were both registered Southern Democrats, and I wanted to go into the booth with them because I wasn't sure that they'd vote for the Republican. And so I always say that I sort of kind of got to vote in the 1980 election because I walked in with mom and dad both and made sure they marked their ballot correctly. So that was fun, and it's in my blood. And working with people, I'm a volunteer firefighter. also past master of my lodge. So we do a lot of volunteer work, and my wife works with the elderly in our community, our seasoned citizens, as she would say. So we're really engaged, and politics is a great way to help people. It's a lot of fun. It's social. I'm a social person. I don't mind it, and I don't mind the criticism. So every now and then it gets a little under your skin, but it's also kind of fun to see what people say. But as well, knowing the community and the people who have lived there all their lives, and that's a lot of fun too. And to go represent them in Raleigh it is a labor of love, and it's a lot of fun. And I think we've made some real impact. And what we've been able to accomplish since I got here, when I was appointed, was looking for work, as we've talked about before. And it doesn't pay much to be a legislator, but it pays more than nothing. But it gave me an opportunity to get into other things as well. I'm a tech person by trade, so I enjoy a lot of what we do in the legislature with regards to tech, and I love tax policy. So you just kind of pour yourself into it.
When you were appointed, that idea of going to Raleigh, was that something that had been in your mind that you thought maybe someday?
Maybe someday, but the someday was going to be, when I retire from work or whatever it is. And when Jonathan Ryan was serving as our legislator, and he moved next door to Gaston County to the family home place, and so he was ineligible to hold office, but had a number of folks come to me and say, hey, would you serve? And then my wife said, why wouldn't you do that? I said, well, it's not really my time frame. She said, it's an open seat and people are asking you to do it. Of course it's your time frame. So she was incredibly supportive, and so that was just a new journey for us, and she remains supportive. As a matter of fact, she follows politics as much or more than I do, so it's kind of fun, but it's things we share together.
I think it's fair to say you rose pretty quickly in the ranks in the legislature.
Sure.
I mean, you became finance chairman with second term?
Yes.
And now you're in your fourth term and you're one of the head budget writers. I mean, this is a pretty fast ascension in a body that people are in for great lengths of time. What do you credit that to?
I have an acumen for it. I studied political science. Had followed. I was our chairman of our North Carolina student legislature at UNC Charlotte, and our instructor had been a former member, one of the first women in the state house. She was a lifelong Democrat. Learned parliamentary procedure and learned it forward and backward because she made me. Louise Brennan was her name, and she was a wonderful instructor. And I saw the passion that she had, and she was incredible about how she shared her experience in the legislature as a woman in the 60s and 70s serving. That fascinated me. But then relationships with people. Because I've been in and around this, I traveled the state when I was on the gubernatorial campaign as a staffer. Just knew people from all across the state. A lot of the colleagues that I have served with, and currently serve with, I knew from before, both in the Senate and the House. And so those relationships have helped me in such a way, I think, that most folks, when they come to the legislature, they don't necessarily have those. And at that time, Speaker Tillis, now Senator Tillis, Speaker Tillis told me, he said, hey, Saine, you know a lot of people. My advice to you in this short session that you're getting to serve someone else's term, get to know people, find out what makes them tick. And he said, I think you'll be pretty successful. I followed that advice, and he wasn't wrong.
And here you are today.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We're going to take one last break, but when we come back, when it comes to priorities, Representative Saine says keeping the economy strong and taxes low are important to him. We'll talk about why when we